So I will be streaming this live as well on Facebook.
How's the voice coming through? Okay?
Yeah, okay. Everything is fine. Yeah.
Gotta wait for.
Let me just set up the thing.
Test.
Right, so I think we are live. So we're just gonna be doing some very simple introduction. Then we can start the tasting session. Is it okay for you, Ning? I cannot hear you. Can hear.
Test.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, back up. Okay. Let me see the live link. Go live now.
Hi everyone. Who's joining us today?
Okay, I think Carmen is joining us. Kitty, Laylee, Angie. Let's see.
Who's EJ?
EJ is Angie.
Oh, okay. And Laylee?
Laylee from Penang. Carmen from Cheras. Chocolate Lovers is Kitty from Penang as well.
Okay.
Okay. So we are also live in Facebook. So I just... So I will just say hi to our Facebook group. I will share you the link as well so that you can also share it around.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with some introduction. So welcome everyone to Monday Orange Talk Show. But today is a special edition whereby we collaborate with Chocolate Concierge, which is Ning here. And he will be guiding us through the chocolate tasting journey experience. And yeah, so today he will be the star of the talk show, right? So today is more about discovering the hidden power of chocolate rather than the arts. But then when we talk about chocolates, it's more about like just taste. So it can be a bit of arts, right? Because you see their chocolate concierge also produce different artisan chocolates, which is very beautiful and also taste uniquely different. So it's great to have you, Ning, here to let us know more about local chocolates, especially the single origin chocolates. And also, yeah, we will looking forward to listen more of your stories and also your expertise in chocolates.
Well,
So
good evening,
yeah,
everyone. I just want to say that everyone should be comfortable to interrupt anytime. I'll be monitoring the chat. If there's any questions being asked, I'll address them in the Zoom chat. If you have a microphone, anytime, if I pause, don't pause, just jump right in and ask. I want you to be comfortable to ask questions anytime. There are no bad questions. If you have a burning question, the chances are high that someone else has the same question as well. So you're doing both of you a favor by asking it. Before we begin, I'd like to say big thank you for Kim for hosting tonight's opportunity with art and chocolate. And before you begin, you should have received your tasting kit. If you haven't, this would be a good time to remove it from your fridge, but do not remove it out of the bag. Leave it in the bag and allow it to normalize with the room temperature for now. So everyone, give me a okay or something in the chat so I know everyone's on the same page. That you have your kit ready. Still leave it, if you just taken it out, leave it in there for the next 10 minutes at least. We won't touch it until 10 minutes later. We'll talk a little bit about why this is important. And then pour yourself some warm drinking water. That would be helpful. And I'll also tell you why we should have drinking water whenever we are tasting. More than one reason. Okay. Have you heard of, I'm just going to jump ahead here. Have you heard of this idea that chocolate should not be kept in fridge? You've heard of it. At least some of you have heard of this. Like, don't put chocolate.
Some of us, yes, put in the fridge is better, or no. Yes, different voices actually.
So there's no consensus as to should I put my chocolate in the fridge or not put it in the fridge, right?
I think most of us will think that not putting in the fridge is the way to go.
Right. So if you're in Australia and it's spring, or if you're in Europe and it's autumn or winter or spring, yes. If you're in the northern hemisphere where there are 4 seasons, definitely you don't need to put it in the fridge. But Malaysia being Kuala Lumpur being 6 degrees north of the equator, still very, very much in the middle of the tropical band. Definitely the room temperature here in Malaysia can actually vary between, if you have a room temperature that is air conditioned, which could be between 18 to 22 degrees, or you could have room temperature which is not air conditioned, which can be closer to 30 degrees. Now, in that situation, if you leave the chocolate out in the room and there's no air cooling and the room is 30 degrees because there's a window and the sun is streaming in, or there are other machineries like a computer or a TV or a fridge that's generating heat within the vicinity and there is no airflow to carry away that heat. Chocolate, the cocoa butter within the chocolate will start to will turn liquid, and it will emerge from the surface of the chocolate. That means it will become liquid, and it will stop being homogeneous with whatever other ingredients in there. And when that happens, and when you pick that piece of chocolate up and you feel, oh, it's soft, the problem has already happened. When you pick up that chocolate and it's soft, and you think, oh, okay, it's all right, I'm going to put it in the fridge now. I didn't put it in the fridge earlier, but now I'm going to put it in the fridge. And then you quickly put it in the fridge to solidify it. And when you take it out, sometimes what you would notice is this film of white. Maybe sometimes you'd think it would look mossy, but it's no longer shiny. Your bar of chocolate is no longer glossy. And that's one out of 2 conditions we call, this would in this case be a fat bloom. the other bloom would be a sugar bloom. And I'll explain what sugar bloom is. So fat bloom is when the cocoa butter within the chocolate has turned liquid, and then you re-solidify it, and then it has escaped to the surface of the chocolate and then solidified there, leaving a very unappetizing film. It's still safe to eat. However, because the cocoa butter has been released from the mix, which is the chocolate, we'll dive deeper into what's in chocolate. And it's solidified there. That means the middle of the chocolate has been, some of the cocoa butter has transitioned to the surface. So you will not get, and also the tempering is also may have changed. You may want to, Kim, you might want to move your mic away from your keyboard because I can hear every key type.
I see. All right.
And so this is not a good thing. If you have a warm room, definitely refrigerate your chocolate. And there's nothing wrong with refrigerating your chocolate. If you have a wine chiller, 18, 16, 12 degrees, that would be the best temperature range to keep it at. But if you don't have that, fridge is not the problem at all. The problem with fridge is not that it's cold. The problem with the fridge is that when you take the chocolate out cold, and immediately if you remove the wrapper, if you remove the protective pouch, and the chocolate is exposed to warm, humid air, because of the temperature difference, the warm, humid air will start to condensate on the surface of the chocolate. And if you eat it immediately, that's fine. But if you don't eat it immediately, and that water eventually evaporates because there's sugar as well in chocolate, and sugar is water soluble. The water will start to dissolve the sugar from the surface of the chocolate, and when the water evaporates, it leaves the film of sugar, and this is the other bloom which makes chocolate have that whitish film, very unappetizing film, which is in this case would be the sugar bloom. It's still safe to eat, but it's very easy to avoid, which is keep chocolate away from moisture, keep chocolate away from humidity. And if you're keeping it in the fridge, keep it in a very simple, it doesn't even have to be a Ziploc bag, just something that forms a barrier, an air barrier for when you take the chocolate out when it's still cold, to give it time to normalize to the room temperature that you have, so that there's no temperature shock and there's no condensation. So you're trying to avoid condensation in this case, which a simple bag will do. So that's how you should keep your chocolate. And if chocolate's kept well, you could have it for a long, long time, even past its expiry date, because chocolate don't turn from safe to eat, which is one day before it's expired, to toxic within, when it crossed the midnight. No, when it crossed the midnight mark, when it's the next day, you're like, oh, I can't eat it now. And before you're like, okay, let's eat it. So it doesn't do that. Food deteriorates over a long period of time. But chocolate doesn't do that. If it's kept well, you can keep it for a really long time. Because it's essentially devoid of moisture. Chocolate has pure dark chocolate or milk or white chocolate has no moisture in it. And that's the reason why it can be kept for a really long time. Before we go into the contents of the chocolate, this is how chocolate should be kept, and hopefully dispel any myth about putting chocolate in fridges. Not a problem at all. Even if you want to freeze chocolate, you can, as long as you're freezing it, the transition from warm to cold is done correctly, which is airtight, and then cold back to warm is also done in a gradual rate, whereby there is very little shock and no condensation happens, and then you remove the bag. It's not a problem.
Mm-hmm. So as long as you keep it in a simple plastic bag, that's it, and you can keep it in the fridge and maintain it in a good condition.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one fun fact for you all. So, because I also usually keep it in a room temperature, so sometimes it get a bit, melted a bit, so it doesn't taste that well. Okay, so far there's no questions from our participants.
Okay, so then allow me to delve right in then.
Yep, sure.
Let me just get a sense of who's here. Okay, so I have Angie, I have Kitty, I have
Common.
Laylee hasn't said anything. Come on, Laylee, could you just type something so we know you're there? All right. I think we want to tackle, or I would like to tackle the topic of what is origin? What is single origin? Because you started the show talking about Malaysian single origin, and what's this? What does origin mean? Why single origin? Is this like single malt in whiskey? What is it? So can I get an indication as to if you've heard of, at least come across the phrase, not necessarily even like know what it is, but been told or heard about single origin coffee, for example. Have you heard of single origin
Yeah,
coffee?
yeah. Yes, for me. There's blend and there's also single origin.
Blended or single origin, right?
Yeah.
So when the phrase comes to you, single origin, single means basically one area, origin, one location.
Mhm.
And why is it so important for coffee lovers, coffee drinkers to know what's the origin of the coffee, and if it's a single origin or it's blended? Me being Malaysian, I will raise an example that is very Malaysian. I'll use an example that is very close to my heart, which is durian. So I think the Penangites, the people from Penang would say, oh yeah, durian, Penang has its own very unique varieties. So durian sort of has this unifying quality for Malaysians because Sabah Sarawak has its own very very unique varieties and also species, as well as Peninsular Malaysia from Pahang to Penang to Johor. They all have their different varieties that grow very well in certain region. And can we all agree that durian from, let me stretch the example a bit. Can we say that Malaysian durian tastes the same or different than our northern neighbor, Thai durian? I won't use Singapore because I don't come across too many Singapore durians. So Thailand is the next example. Do you think Thailand durian, if it's the same variety, will it taste the same or different than Malaysian?
I think it will be different.
It'll be different?
Yeah, in some ways. Maybe slightly, but definitely some difference.
Okay, we have certain indication that I've always loved durian. So whenever I'm traveling or when I see durian, I can't resist. So I've had I had my share of Malaysian durians, but I've also had some Thai durian, and to me they taste very different. The varieties might be different, maybe the geography, maybe also how the farming practice in Thailand differs from Malaysia. In Malaysia, we wait for our durian to fall. It's the most efficient way. You don't have to climb the tree, you don't have to cut it down, you just pick it up. And I've been told that in Thailand, they cut the durian off the tree rather than wait for it to fall. And this difference in farm management is at least one of the factor to what influences the difference in flavor from Malaysia to Thailand. Mm-hmm. The geography is also different. It's more north than where we are, and therefore climate is different, rainfall is different, cloud cover is different, soil nutrition may be slightly dissimilar, and all of this forms a specific characteristic for the region, which separates it from what we are practicing here in Malaysia. And therefore, in Thai durian and Malaysian durian, you expect the flavors to be different. Same with coffee, same with wine. And in this case, same with chocolate and cocoa, except when chocolate lovers or when chocolate consumers have a bar of chocolate, they are not normally informed of the origin of the cocoa, where the cocoa is grown. If you pick up a regular bar of chocolate off the shelf of a supermarket, the norm is that you would have very little clue as to where the cocoa is grown. You may be told where the chocolate is made. It's Australian, American, European, Singaporean, Malaysian, in Asia. But you may not be given an indication where the cocoa is grown, which for me is the whole point of the flavor. That's how we tie the flavor to the flavor of the chocolate to the produce, which is cocoa beans. Where the cocoa beans are grown has a huge impact to how the chocolate will eventually taste. So that's why origin is important. But so now that we know origin, now that I've kind of established why origin is important, so why single origin? So if you imagine if I've taken durians from Penang, Thailand, Indonesia, and I've kind of just extracted the meat out, into puree, I just blended it. Now, if you tasted that durian, would you be able to tease out the characteristic that would distinguish it apart from, like this? Would you be able to call it out if it's not even the variety like Musang or 24, but like, would you be able to tease out the uniqueness or the characteristic of something that is blended? It's much harder.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if we just tasted durian, you don't want to do that. When you're tasting something, you want to just taste a single area. Okay, now we're tasting something from Penang, for example. And then the next, when you've zoomed in on that, when you've had that very clearly established, then you move on to, okay, now it's Pahang. Okay, now it's Johor. So you can have this, even the same variety will taste different when it's planted in 3 different regions. And that's what makes tasting interesting. That's what gives characteristics, to a tasting activity such as durian or tea or coffee or chocolate. So therefore, single origin is important. But beyond that, I have another agenda. I have another vision for Malaysian chocolate, which is that years ago, when I was a kid, I used to live in Subang Jaya. I've moved houses a couple times, but during my short few years in Subang Jaya, I could have been maybe 6 or 7 years old, and maybe 10. And I remember walking in the palm oil estate. Subang Jaya, some 30 years ago, was palm oil estate. Okay. And I remember discovering cocoa for the first time by myself. I'm walking in this palm oil estate, just loitering alone, exploring. And then I find this tree, and with fruits that are very low hanging. They're red and yellow and they're plump and they look so inviting. So I thought I discovered it. I thought I found something. I thought I discovered a miracle. I thought, oh, it's magical, right? But later on, I realized it's, I've been stealing cocoa essentially, as a kid, just plucking people's cocoa. So I shouldn't be so proud. And when I break it open the first time and it looks so inviting, these little pearl colored, these white translucent pieces of flesh that reminded me of custard apple or soursop. It looks so inviting. I mean, if a monkey or a kid sees it, I think they won't hesitate. So that's what I did. I tasted it and I thought, wow, that was great. So what's happened from then, which 20, 30 years ago when Malaysia was planting cocoa, we were very high up there in terms of volume produced. In the world at the time, we were number 3 in terms of how much cocoa we produce out of Malaysia. But now everyone's gotten rid of their cocoa. Malaysia is very suitable for planting cocoa, but now we plant very little of it. We produce very little of it. And when we do make chocolate, we are the producers here are forced to import cocoa beans from mostly African producers, but sometimes also Indonesian producers. And I find that sad because, you know, being Malaysian and loving chocolate and wanting to taste what a Malaysian chocolate tasted like, you know, years ago, I thought, why won't someone just make chocolate with a Malaysian cocoa? And that's how to ask that question sparked my journey into making chocolate from Malaysian cocoa and eventually running a farm and so on.
All right. So I think that's a pretty long journey. Since your childhood, you get to encounter cocoa plants. For me, I didn't like even see the cocoa plant before. So when I see some of the photos in your Facebook page, that cocoa plants is actually like soursop, whitish color, but I haven't tasted it before. Is it sourish or is it like sweet?
It could range from really sweet to slight tartness, some acidity. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's jump into the tasting, right? Kim, you want to just jump into the tasting since we got
the chocolate taste already
half the time left.
Already smelling the chocolate since the start.
I want to start by saying there's no wrong way to eating chocolate, so so don't feel like we're very stuck up.
It's like fine dining.
No, absolutely not. So I've provided a form, okay? So if you want to take down notes as you're tasting, you can. You don't have to if you're traumatized by your schooling experience, and I don't blame you for that. Skip it, it's okay, right? Just enjoy the moment. It's more important to enjoy the moment than to lose it because you're thinking too much, trying to overanalyze. Just live in the moment is more important. Okay, I will give you some guidance though, because we are blind tasting, meaning you have no idea what you're tasting. You just have to take my word for it. They're all dark chocolate, okay? They're all made with there's no, if there are any one of you
numbers, right?
There are numbers, and if you're vegan or if you're lactose intolerant, don't worry. These are all the ingredients that we use in all these chocolate are only cocoa, whatever comes from the cocoa butter or cocoa mass, cocoa nibs, and the other component is cane sugar. So there's nothing else in there. So quite pure. So you have three-digit numbers across your 4 bars, so that we can have the same sequence. When I say sequence, I don't mean that this should be the sequence you taste it in. Okay, forget about that. I just want to know what is our number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, so that later on when we are discussing, I don't have to make sure it's this digit so that we are all aligned here. So the number sample number 1, look for the bar which is 125.
125. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't eat it all before tonight.
Okay. 125.
125. Okay. So put that bar in the first column, or write down above the first square 125. Okay, everyone good? I'll share this in the chat too, so if you miss it, it's okay. Just read up. So 125, second sample is 139, followed by 143, and the last one is 162. I'll put that in the chat.
Okay.
I repeat one last time. 125, 125, 139, 143, and then the last sample is 162. All right.
Okay, got it.
Everyone's got it? Okay. And right before you dig in, I have a warm-up sample here, which is in little pieces, like square inch pieces this size. These ones are just for you to, oh, by the way, I have, these ones are bloomed. I just want to show you now. If you can see that. This is what bloomed chocolate looks like. It's no longer shiny, it's matte, and it's got this white film because I may have kept this out and this particular package out. So it's bloomed, but it's okay. It's safe to eat. I'm just going for the flavor. So let's start with this first. So this would be sample 0. Everyone's got it? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Have at it. As you're processing this on your palate, a few things you want to notice is the first is I think the first thing that hits you is that's very easy to notice is the sweetness. Kind of register how sweet or unsweet this is on a scale of 0 to 5. Everyone's got a mental scale. We're not going to calibrate our palates today because it's not such a long tasting and there's not that many of us. So sweetness, and if you read down the form, it says intensity of flavor, okay? Then acidity, which is if there any acidity, there may be sourness in the chocolate. Then bitterness. Astringency is something that dries out your palate. It's more of it's also a texture rather than just a pure taste. Something astringent, as an example, would be a green banana, that it curls your tongue when you have it. Very young red wine might do that as well. Complexity is when you can taste many things at the same time or at different times in the same sample. Something is complex when it has maybe fruit, berries, nuts, wood, or category of flavors coming together. And length is how long it lingers on your palate. So this is why we should always have water, but don't drink it until at least give it a minute for the chocolate to play it all out, and then you could rinse your palate. And the water is not just a good way of cleansing your palate, but I said earlier that chocolate is made of, in these cases that you're having, it's made of cocoa and sugar. So there's no water content in it. And our body is primarily water, H2O. So as you're consuming chocolate, which is a purely dry ingredient, you have to restore that balance by hydrating. So don't forget. Okay, how was that? Describe to me, Kim.
Well,
You're the only one on mic. How was that one? What was sample 0 like for you?
Sample 0. Oh, so intensity wise, I think it should be like about 3 or 4. 4-ish, I would say. Acidity lesser is about like 1. Bitterness, I think literally 0. No bitterness. Stringency also 0. Complexity perhaps like 1. Blank also 2.
Okay, fair, very fair evaluation. Okay, so now that we have normally the first chocolate that we taste is kind of like a sacrificial one because our palate warms up, and then we get to the real samples, and then now we can discuss about the other samples. So let's dig right in. You can start anywhere, okay? And I'll do this with you, and we'll emerge at the end of it where I will give you a little journey about how the chocolate gets turned from beans into the final chocolate. And then we will reveal the origins of these 4 chocolates. Okay?
Okay, sure. So for now, we can taste it ourselves.
Taste it in silence.
Yep.
I would recommend, just recommendation, okay? You don't have to follow, right? It's really a recommendation, suggestion. So before you taste it, maybe give it a nose to get an indication of what the chocolate may hold. Form an impression based on the aroma, and then confirm that with the tasting. So if you know something that is woody, so look for it if it's something fruity or berry-like or floral. So you can look, in that particular section or category for something. I'm going to mute myself for now so that you won't have to be distracted.
All right. So basically, I will try one by one and note it down. So big. It's quite soft.
All right.
I have one last one to go.
No, don't hurry yourself. I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump right in here as you're tasting your last one or two left samples. Just going to walk you through how chocolate gets made into from beans into chocolate.
All right.
Just an express speed train 101. Okay. We have a pot. Let me see if I have a sample of a pot here somewhere. I usually do. Give me a second. Oh yeah, here. Okay, here we go. This is a dried one. I was just at the farm today, but I don't have a fresh one on hand with me.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a dried cocoa pod. Just about, actually, when it's fresh, it's slightly plumber, but the length is more or less the same. The cocoa tree takes only 3 years to grow its first harvest. So if you want something that is easy to grow in Malaysia, doesn't require much care, plant a cocoa tree. Every pod is a bar of chocolate. Think of it that way. And the tree gives you the tree gives you at least 50 pods a year, every year. You know, some trees give you 200. So,
wow.
And you can make chocolate at home. It's totally doable with very basic equipment. Like if you have a pan and a stove, you could roast your beans like that. If you have a roaster oven, that's fine too. You could use a pestle and mortar, batu giling to refine your chocolate. If you don't want to do that, you could use a blender. You know, very simply, chocolate can be made, okay, with very crude equipment, very simple, basic equipment. So this is a pot, okay. So if you break open this pot when it's fresh, you get beans that are fruits, you know, like a interior of a custard apple. The first process after pot breaking is fermentation, because there's a lot of sugar and we're in the tropics. So anything exposed to the air will start to ferment with so much sugar. After fermentation, it's dried and we get something like that, cocoa beans. What I've done is I have included a pouch of cocoa beans in your sample pack. Is that a cocoa bean?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
So, yep.
You could crack that. That's roasted, by the way. So you could crack that open like you would a peanut, and the contents of the cocoa bean are cocoa nibs, and you could sprinkle that on your yogurt. You know, you could use it in your granola, with your cereal. You could use that to cook if you want. Yeah, taste it. So that's basically chocolate without sweetener in its crudest form. So once we roast the beans and we remove the shell, the bean shell, which we call husk, from the contents, you get nib. So nibs these are things that this is the contents of the beans. From here, it's easy. It's 1, 2, 3. This is the hard part. The easy part, in fact, most chocolate producers only do the easy part, which is you pass this through a machine, refine sugar. I'm escaping a lot of details, but you refine down the particle size of this stuff and sugar, and you have a basic dark chocolate.
But it has to go through a machine, or it can be done with hands.
In a manufacturing, for production, we would use some automation. Actually, it's not really automation. Basically, it's a motor that turns the grinder. But if you want to do it by hand, you can. In fact, for a long time, for thousands of years, it's been done by hand. In fact, chocolate doesn't exist as a bar of chocolate for the longest time. You know, cocoa has been consumed more in a liquid form. So if you look at the diagram or drawings from the Mayans, it's froth like the teh tarik from a high, it's poured, it's pulled, it's thrown. That means it's poured from a high point so that it froths as it lands. And it's made a lot of times with other ingredients. Actually, honey is kind of rare, so it's hardly sweetened, but it's consumed for its medicinal, mood uplifting, antioxidant, nutritive properties. And cocoa is great for that. It sets an upset stomach, for example. It's a fantastic prebiotic. And more research are surfacing now about the benefits of dark chocolate. Yeah, so that's the 101 of how chocolate. Now everyone can grow a tree now and make bars at home, which is how I started.
So how do we actually get the seeds, or should we get a young tree?
Either way, yeah. You can start with a seed. You can start with a young tree.
So where can we like get the supply of the seeds or the young plants?
You could get it from a nursery. You could get it from a farmer. Yeah, if you're interested and if you're around Kapung or Bangsar, drop me a text on Instagram or Facebook on the page and say, hey, I want to adopt a tree, or can I get some seeds to plant? And yes, I've given a bunch of saplings before. Maybe they're still around, to Free Tree Society, so they're giving away trees. So if you go there and you see, you may find cocoa.
Okay. So basically, I just like plant it in a pot and just let it grow.
You can plant it in a pot. Cocoa is a great plant that is shade tolerant, meaning it actually prefers shade. It does better in shade. So this means that you could actually plant it indoors. Yeah, okay. Cocoa it's a very decorative plant for me. That's why I'm growing 2 or 3 cocoa in pots for bonsai. So I will have a number of indoor cocoa going forward in the new. So I'm moving kitchen now. I'm renovating and all that. So eventually we'll have a space where we'll invite everyone for tasting, and you'll see the cocoa bonsai in the space.
All right. So for now you are still in KL region, or? The
farm is in Pahang, and where we're producing, it's near Menjalara.
So it's 2 different places, and then only you bring into Bangsa, which is your shop.
Right, which is just a retail. In fact, we do have some trees around where our kitchen is, because I see trees all the time, and I really love them, and it's a way, when I'm walking under the trees, it's really a way for me to de-stress and to understand the plant better, to get to know it more intimately, prune, to take care of small number of trees, to prune it, to do it well, allows me to understand when I eventually wanted to take care of more trees, what would be involved. Should we jump into the conclusion for the tastings? Which one did you like? Which one you didn't? And then I'll review the origins. I noticed it's already 9 o'clock, so
yeah,
we'll finish. We'll wrap it up
so fast.
We'll wrap it up really quickly. Okay, so let's do this very quickly because there's very little of us. So let's compare notes then. Okay, sample 125. Okay. Oh. Yeah. Okay, so sample 125.
Should we like ask them to type it out?
Yeah, you just indicate, I indicate, and then we kind of compare notes. Okay, intensity 3. Yeah, okay. Acidity
3.
Okay. Bitterness
3 as well.
Okay. Astringency
2.
Oh, okay. Complexity
3.
Length
3.
Okay. Pretty much very, 1 or 2 points away. Okay. 1 point away mostly. Okay. This is 70% chocolate. I'll tell you the origin in a bit. Okay, sample 139. What's your intensity rating?
Intensity 3.
Okay. Acidity?
4.
Is it higher or lower than the 125?
It tasted like a bit more than 125.
Okay. Bitterness?
2.
Okay. Astringency?
1.
Okay. Complexity?
4.
Ooh, okay. And length?
4.
Okay. So for judging, so I'll tell you what criteria we're looking for when we're judging chocolate, or what I think judges are judging when they're judging chocolate. We're looking for complexity, because complexity can be interesting. And then not necessarily, intensity cannot be too weak, but it doesn't have to be overpowering as well, okay? But for me personally, I like some acidity. It makes chocolate that isn't flat. You know, acidity also makes it delicious for me. And bitterness shouldn't be too high. Bitterness is something that when it's too high, may be imparted from roasting or roasting a little bit more than you normally would. Okay. Astringency is an indication of how well fermented or under-fermented the beans are before the chocolate gets made. There are other factors, but generally that's the major contribution to astringency is the fermentation of the cocoa beans. Variety matters as well. And then length, which is if the chocolate's made well, then and the ingredients are all there, it's of best quality, then you'd expect a length that lingers. Sample 143, intensity.
4.
Okay, ooh, going up. Acidity.
3.
Okay. Bitterness.
2.
Astringency.
2.
Complexity.
3.
Length.
3.
Oh, okay. Pretty much on point. Pretty much on point. Okay. Something we didn't talk about flavors, so we'll come back to talk about that. Okay. Sample 162. Intensity.
3.
I got 2.5. Acidity.
2.
Okay, I got 1. Bitterness.
1. 2.
Astringency.
2.
Complexity.
3.
2.5 for me. 3.
Okay.
Length.
3.
Okay, 2.5 for me. 3. Okay. Let's talk about notes. Did you get any notes that are unusual that pop up at you at any samples between these 4?
I think my personal favorite is 139.
Okay.
I so forget the notes. I have to taste it back again.
And I'm not going to feed you the notes, okay? Because everyone tastes chocolate differently. But I've written all sorts of notes.
Let me try
I've written
again.
all 4 notes. Okay, let's try 139 since it's your favorite, right? Let's do 139. Let me find my sample. Okay, here we go. 139. So this chocolate has quite a robust, very balanced acidity. Remember I said I tend to favor chocolate that has acidity?
I think same
this one has acidity. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but 139 has like a pruny, like a raisin prune middle note, which is like dried fruit.
Yeah, a bit of fruity. Very
but
light.
I'll stop. I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to like try to like, you know, like psycho you into tasting something you didn't. But for me, there are certain other notes. But I thought I mentioned the first one that was the most obvious. Now let's do this. Let's taste the first. Remember sample 0. Let's finish the circle. Okay, let's finish the circle. The sample 0, how it tasted to you. Let's go back to that. Okay. I have a point to make about that as well.
Sample 0, when I tasted that, it tasted different.
Yes. Thank you for making that point. It should.
Oh, it should be. Oh, okay.
Because your palate, when you first tasted it, wasn't warmed up. Remember I said it's a sacrificial. So when your palate is already established to the spectrum of what you're tasting, and then you circle back to sample zero, you'll definitely experience it very differently. Now I have to break your bubble with sample zero. Sample zero is an example of a compound chocolate, which is a commercially produced chocolate. How do you distinguish that the next time? Don't rinse your palate so fast. I see you're trying to rinse your palate. Let it sit in, Kim. Let it sit in. Okay. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay.
It's a bit sweet.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for the next time you taste chocolate is when you experience something that is tend to be sweeter. That's one indication. Second, you would.
It's sticky.
How about the complexity? Do you get different? Are you getting high complexity or low complexity with sample zero?
I think low. I would say like
now that you've
2.
tasted the 4 samples, you think it would be low, right? Because you're getting cocoa, but you're not getting anything else. You're not getting fruity or floral, maybe nutty, because that's kind of still in the same category of cocoa. And then what you notice is also this stickiness, waxiness that is due to commercially made chocolate may have vegetable fat or hydrogenated palm kernel fat added, so that it replaces the cocoa butter. Cocoa butter is very expensive. Use that for something else and replace it with the vegetable fat that is higher melting temperature than cocoa butter. So it's shelf stable. You could put it in Malay. That chocolate, if you leave it in your room temperature, it's going to be okay. So if you read the ingredients list, it will give you an indication of how you may or may not want to store your chocolate. So, but European, what we say as pure chocolate with only with cocoa butter with no additional vegetable fat, we call that couverture. Those will have tend to have a lower melting point. Laylee says she prefers 162. Okay, now before the review, let's have everyone put in your bid. Carmen, what's your bid? Angie, what's your bid? What's your favorite?
Let's key in then.
Kitty, what's your favorite? Let's hear from everyone. Let's do this. I'm waiting. Come on, let me know.
Maybe they have a hard time to choose.
Pick more than one. Pick more than one. And then we'll reveal the origins. And then the final question of the night, just to hit home a point, and then we'll call it, okay? So sample 125, just to give you a bit of oh, okay. Kitty's favorite is 139 and 143. So we have we have people who love all over the place, which is tend to be the case. Okay, Angie is like 143. Okay, interesting. Okay, ready for the origins. Here we go. So 125 is Batang Kali. Maybe you want to what I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen, and as I'm explaining to you the origin of this chocolate, I will share the photos of the farm that these cocoa are grown. Another thing, just a short note about, sometimes I use the word cocoa, C-O-C-O-A, interchangeably with cacao, C-A-C-A-O. Only exists in the English language, right? Other Latin languages everything is cacao, from Spanish.
Cacao.
Everything else, French, it's cacao. Only English is extra confusing. It's cocoa, cacao. So when we talk about the species, the plant, it's cacao. But when we talk about the finished product, the powder, the butter, the paste, the mass of it, the liquor of it, we call that cocoa, which is super confusing. But if you just stick to one or the other, it's okay. That's fine as well. Okay. All right, here comes the photos of Batang Kali. I'm gonna share. How do I share my screen here? Boop. Share screen. Aha, there you go.
Right.
Okay. show you. Jump straight into the farm. So this is what fresh cacao. Are you seeing is my screen being shared?
Yep. Let me.
Everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Batang Kali is a 20-acre farm in Batang Kali. It was abandoned for about 8 to 10 years. And then we came in and leased that plot, and we tried to rehabilitate the trees that are really old. And so because the trees are old and unkept, so the yield are extremely low. But the flavors of this origin are very unusual that we thought would be interesting to, that's not cocoa, that's pucuk paku. Pucuk paku, when I'm there, I always harvest it to eat. But here's a cocoa tree in that area. Just see how tall the other trees are and how it's still productive. Some trees are still very productive, and we thought we could turn it around. Unfortunately, we couldn't. The farm was bleeding for months and years, and eventually we had to give it up. So the Batang Kali that you're tasting we're no longer producing. It's a remnant from the previous harvest. So here's an example of what I mean by cocoa is very resilient, or cacao is very resilient. The tree has toppled over, maybe during a strong wind, but it has survived and thrived, and in its place you have multiple offshoots that are growing and producing the fruits.
Still surviving.
Still thriving.
And becoming more trees.
Yes, still thriving. This is an example of what I'm showing you here is that if an orchard has cocoa and it's well pruned, the cocoa leaves actually forms a natural mulch, and it prevents the growth of grass. And because the leaves are also taking up a lot of shading the ground. In this example, I think the light is getting through because it's getting closer to the evening and the light's coming through from an angle. But otherwise, not much light gets to the ground, and therefore not much grass growth.
So not much of weeds.
Not much grass. So quite easy to maintain if you do it correctly. So cocoa is loved by a lot of mammals. In this case, I think might be a civet cat or a tree shrew or a squirrel. Here's an example, very typical of cocoa just being eaten right from the tree. They don't even pluck the fruit, they just leave it there and they eat it. Here's an example of a ripe cocoa. So the first origin 1 to 5 is Batang Kali, and it's made at a 70%. When I say 70%, I mean that 70% of the bar of chocolate comes from the cocoa bean itself. The 30% in our case is just cane sugar. Okay, next origin. Next origin is term 1. You can write term 1. As part of our social enterprise, we're working with 2 Orang Asli groups. One of them is term 1. Term 1 is in Pahang. And in fact, I'll show you since we are on this topic, I'll show you. So the other sample is term 1 is made to 70%. Okay. Let's skip ahead. We'll come back to the photos, and then the next origin is 143. It's Hulu Gali. Term 1 is grown by the community of Orang Asli. Term 1 is not. They don't have very large communities. The kampung has maybe 20-25 households per village, and in here we have given planting material, and there has been a bid to a project to increase household income by growing crops that are inclusive of cocoa, durian, and bananas, so that the trees will return will give a financial return year after year, generation after generation. I'll circle back to the photos. 143 is Hulu Gali. I know some of the ladies preferred that. Hulu Gali is the unusual point about Hulu Gali is that the farm managed by our farmer partner Zul was a previous banker, and here he doesn't use pesticides, so doesn't the Orang Asli villages. It's pesticide free. We know this because we send it for lab tests, and it comes back with very encouraging results. No detectable pesticides, which is confirming. Hulu Gali, here it's biocontrol, meaning the farmer is using black ants to control pest, and it's intercrop with coconuts. This land is very unusual because it borders a limestone formation, and so look at how neat this place is. Which appreciate this for just a second, because in the Orang Asli village you don't see cocoa that's planted in rows, right? What you'll see is mixed crop. So this is unusual. And you'll see here coconut trees, and the backdrop is a limestone mountain. And the lime is washed down with the rain to increase the pH of the land beneath it. So the cocoa is very fertile. You see there are 2 layers here. The cocoa is in the is kept at a height of 2 meters. And then above that you have coconuts, which is very suitable as a dual cropping configuration.
So will it help improve the flavors, or?
It will influence, it will definitely influence the flavor. Every origin has its uniqueness. That's why 143 tastes the way it is. It's because of all these things that we're doing. Okay, the last sample is from Semai tribe, Semai community, Orang Asli with the Semai culture. And this is how cocoa is harvested manually by hand most of the time. This is how it looks on our way driving up 3 hours into the peak of the main range. This is mountain that is mist covered, and you find different species of durian in this location. I'm just totally in love with these red durian flowers, which is very unusual. I'm going to show you
the photos is not shown, right?
Here. Red durian flowers. Have you seen red durian flowers?
I think you haven't shared the screen.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. Since the last one. 143 Hulu Gali.
Did I share Hulu Gali?
Yeah, not yet.
So I've been talking about Hulu Gali and I didn't show any photos.
I thought you
were
talking about stories.
Oh no. Oh well.
It's okay.
So here's what's unusual about this durian tree. It has red flowers. So this is a durian, but I think it's not the Zabatinus species, a different species. I'm going to show you what the durian the cocoa here looks like in the mixed crop scenario. You see, you don't see cocoa grown in rows, and the cocoa here is just spectacular. I mean the variety that you see and
rose as in the color of the skin.
Yeah. The color of this is not ripe. It's just that color when it's just beautiful. It's just like amazing, striking colors. It just takes my breath away. Okay, here's me trying to climb up to catch a fruit. Here's an odd shape that it's not a pumpkin. It's cocoa. Here's more cocoa, but look at the environment. Okay, I'm going to contrast this with the farm later. So here in the Orang Asli village, on the perimeter of the Orang Asli village, it's mixed crop. You have petai, durian, jackfruit, and cocoa is planted beneath the first canopy. And look at these fruits; they're just so breathtakingly.
Colors.
This is
so many colors.
Yeah, so unusual. It's just so crazy. Everyone was in love, so everyone was pointing their camera at it. But just look at these beautiful pots. I mean, this is not photo enhanced. One pot is almost pure white. It's almost like an albino pot, and one is like pinkish. There's one which is like a pinkish purple, and another one is like orangey scarlet. But look at this environment. It's so very different, and that's what makes each environment different. Just to show you some chocolate making process here while we're at it. Chocolate souffle made with the Orang Asli chocolate. Here's a fruit. Here are more
This
fruits
one
which
is
are
big.
really long and different.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're all very different. Here's one that is very smooth. This is an orang asli house, the interior. So how do you manage to raise a fire in the house? Because it's quite cold at night where they are. So how do you start a fire in a wooden house and not burn it down? So that's the skill. I spent a week with them and had some of these questions answered, but I think that's for another session.
Sharing.
Yeah.
Right.
Architect. Oh, okay. So here's what the insides of the fruit looks like. Look at that. Look at that. That's how cocoa in the fresh cocoa, once you open the pot up, looks like in the inside. Here's another lineup of fruits with rambutan. Okay, last shot. I can go on forever, but this is the last shot of the Orang Asli orchard, and then I'm gonna move to go back to Hulu Gali just to show you what I was talking about with the mixed cropping.
The coconut and also the
Yep.
cocoa.
And the coconut, the cocoa, and as well as the. Oh, are you seeing it now or no?
Yeah, seeing that. Yep.
Okay, so in the backdrop is the limestone hill, coconut, and then cocoa at the bottom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you know the origins, and here's the final question. Do the 4 samples taste the same or different to you?
Definitely different.
And that is that's the research conclusion. That's the research conclusion, which is if a lot of times my friend would say, hey Ning, you make chocolate, they're all from Malaysia, right? So Malaysian cocoa, right? They all taste the same. Why don't you just mix it up and make one Malaysian chocolate? Why do you have to go through all this?
Satu Malaysia.
Why do you have to go through all this trouble of making chocolate from beans from only one location? It's so headache because when the chef or when I like this origin, then it's not in season until next year. And if you've given me a blended one, then you won't go out of stock. It's so much easier. I said, just give me a chance. Sit down, shut up, and taste the chocolate for a minute and tell me if it tastes the same or different. If it tastes the same, then that's what I'll do. I'll blend all the beans because you can't tell the difference. But if it tastes different to you, then there's merit in processing them separately so that we can get the best out of each origin. And that's what we aim to do.
So we have a question from Kitty.
Oh, okay. How do I? Okay, where's the question? Here,
do they all have the same percentage of cocoa?
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't answer that. Yes, they're all 70%. I make it all 70%, so it's easy to compare across.
So why does it has to be 70% or like 75 something? Is there any reason for that?
It can be 50, 60. It's totally a preference. Set at 70. Also, I came across a piece of research that didn't prescribe 70, but then the researchers, when they were researching athletic benefit from consuming chocolate, they used dark chocolate that was at a higher percentage. And for me, 70 is quite pleasant. It's not too in your face. It's balanced. It's well balanced. This is totally a preference thing. You could maybe enjoy a 80%, 85, 90%. But for me, I think a benchmark that I go to a lot of time, it would be a 70. I sometimes enjoy 80 as well, but a 70, and I want to make the same percentage so it's easier to compare just the origin and not be distracted by, oh, this is sweeter or this is less sweet because of the formulation. Thank you, Angie. Angie said it's great that you are educating the chocolate lovers on how different chocolates are different. Yeah, for sure. And just to make it more exciting, if you taste, say, if you loved the Hulu Gali origin or the Semai origin, you taste this season, in 5-6 months, you taste it again, it will slightly be different, just like vintage wine. Because every season, depending on how much rain the trees get, or how much sunlight it gets because of the cloud covering the sky, it will affect the flavors. Therefore, as you are tasting the chocolate will evolve together with you on a journey that is, it's not a consistent.
So it's very seasonal.
Yeah, we're not
flavor.
striving for consistency because we work with nature and we don't want to cross blend between in seasons. So we want to celebrate the different seasons, what it means, and I think for me this is meaningful because as consumers, a lot of times you are so far removed from where our produce are grown. You have no idea. You can't even picture what the farms that are producing your tomatoes or your lemons, how they look like. More so, what are the influence of the farming choices they make? How does that influence us as consumers? So I think being in tune with the season, with the seasonality of crop cycles is exciting because that connects you to when you're tasting it. You're thinking, hey, it's been raining for the last 8 months. Almost 2 days out of 3. How is this changing the flavors of what I'm getting on my
previous
plate?
season.
And the chocolate will give you a glimpse of what that influence is. If you taste it on the next season, which is maybe a very dry season, and how that influences the flavor. So that is something to be experienced. And for when you have that aha moment, you're like, oh, this is what I believe is exciting about single origin. And chocolate, come on, chocolate is like you give it to a 2-year-old, they get it, right? It doesn't have to be something that is very complicated, or we don't have to overthink it. But chocolate has this property that I love, which is it's a universal gift. Anytime you have no idea what to give someone if you're traveling, that's why chocolate is bought as a gift. You buy it first, you have no idea. In the end, you come back, you think, oh, I need one for my boss, I need one for my niece, I need one for my grandma, I need one for my mom. That you give them all chocolate and they're all appreciative. You can't do that with, you name it. You can't do that with a fridge magnet. They don't all appreciate it. It's not very personal. If you buy a scarf, you're not quite sure if they like it or not. But chocolate is universally loved, and because chocolate has this mood uplifting effect to it. You have a piece of chocolate, you get slightly stimulated, not like caffeine, but similar. And it also, for me, to make chocolate is to want to bring a smile to someone when they have it for that instant. So that's what keeps the chocolate production and the team going.
I also received this one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a box of chocolate.
Yeah. So do you want to give a glimpse of what's inside this?
Oh, you've held off. You've held off from eating that this whole time. Okay, you have a lot of discipline.
Patience.
Now you can reward yourself. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. I went half an hour over the time, Kim. But thanks for organizing.
I think it's okay.
This.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe we can have another session.
There's another question I see here. Angie, I've also seen the artisan chocolate with colorful design like those from Godiva. Who is the one doing the design? Yeah, this is the one. The design of the chocolate? Angie, is that what you're asking? Who designs the chocolate? They're all hand painted. Yeah, they're all hand painted. Sometimes I design the chocolate, sometimes the team designs the chocolate. So if you have a suggestion, and we're open to customizing, if you want to change the look and feel, we are very low MOQ, 20 pieces, 40 pieces. We can make something that's totally customized to you. We can even make sugar-free chocolate, which is with a monk fruit extract or a non-glycemic inducing sweetener. Or we can have 100% chocolate as well. That means no sugar, no sweetener at all, to cater to the diabetics in our family.
So everything is customizable.
Everything is customizable
I
because it's
see.
handmade. What I'm going to do, I think I'm going to share my Instagram handle here, Chalk Concierge. It's also on, you can find us on WhatsApp. Our store is in Bangsa Shopping Center.
Mhm. So just out of curiosity, so
Okay.
all the chocolates here are different flavors, or they are the same? Because I see there's even
I
white
think there are
chocolates,
two.
right?
I think there are two. There are two of the same flavors times 6 flavors in your box.
Mm. So can you explain like what's white chocolate actually? Is it white or
Okay, maybe last question.
last
Last question.
question?
Why is
Yeah,
white chocolate white, right? Okay, we
yeah.
gotta ask this question because I explained what's in dark chocolate. Cocoa beans, if you put it under pressure, you could separate out cocoa butter, which is very high price because it's used in moisturizers, lipstick, and so on. And whatever is left after you press out the cocoa butter is mostly cocoa solids. That means the non-liquid part of the cocoa bean.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50-50, but you cannot extract all the butter. Some butter will remain with the solids. And the solid, if you pulverize, you get cocoa powder. Anyway, you extract the cocoa butter, and in white chocolate, there is no cocoa solids, only cocoa butter, the white part of the cocoa. Sugar and milk powder. A lot of times vanilla as well for white chocolate. So that's what white chocolate's made of. That's why it doesn't really have the cocoa. It doesn't really taste very cocoa-ish. It's because only the butter is used.
So it's gonna cost more because it's using cocoa butter.
Not
That's very
necessarily cost more because it has less cocoa content. A lot of times white chocolate is made with higher sugar. So sugar being cheaper.
I see. So more content of cocoa butter and sugar. So that's why I personally like
avoid white
dark
chocolate.
chocolate. Yeah.
There's no shame in nothing right. Everything I believe in is in moderation. You have a piece of chocolate has so little. A piece of that chocolate is 10 grams, and only 3 grams out of that 10 grams, even not a teaspoon, is sugar. Compared to if you have your coffee and you have 1 tablespoon
like
or 2
Milo.
teaspoons of sugar in, that's worse. So
Yeah.
have your coffee or tea black, and then finish off with a piece of chocolate, and you get the satisfaction, you get the satiation, and you actually end up consuming less sugar. So do it in moderation. I personally consume 40 to 50 grams, but I consume cocoa nibs on a daily basis in my oats, yogurt, granola, and so on.
Nice one.
All right,
So cool,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the session.
Hey, pleasure's all mine. Happy Monday.
So hopefully everyone also enjoying their chocolates and also learn something today. Yeah. All right. So I think we're gonna end the session, and we shall see you guys very soon. So if you guys have any more questions for Ming, just feel free to message him in Instagram or Facebook, or even you can ask me and then I can pass the questions to Ning. All right. So if you guys happen to be around Bangsa, right? So feel free to drop by Chocolate Concierge.
Yeah, ask for a tasting anytime.
Do you have any collaboration in Penang? Penang restaurants?
Yeah, well, we're working with a number of Penang outlets. One is Gen or Gun. We might be our chocolate is also featured at Constant Gardener Cafe and maybe 1 or 2 other cafes, which are taking our chocolate to make into hot chocolate drink.
I see. Okay. Yes, because most of them are in Penang, so maybe they can check it out.
Very cool.
Okay. All right. So thank you again for coming over, and Have a great night, everyone. So see you
Good night.
guys. Good night.
Signing out.
Bye.